each one of you that has taken time out of your schedule to join us today. Today we're looking at 1 Samuel chapter 27. This is a chapter that I think it's very short, but it brings just a reality to what we deal with as human beings on a regular basis and how we try to cope and to manage ourselves going forward when we have major obstacles that just don't seem to be able to go away or to get over. Now, what I'm going to do, because this chapter is short, and I think it brings forth a major punch to give us an understanding of some of the things that we deal with and what we do with some of the things we deal with. I'm going to have our regular reading like we do from the King James Version. But right after that, I'm going to allow another version of the Bible. It's called the Message version of the Bible. I'm going to have that one play as well. So we'll get two scripture readings in our lesson today. And I'm going to just allow them to play back to back. But I think it's important that we listen to this and see what it's telling us as we go through and we analyze it. So let's go ahead and get the reading done. We're going to start off with the King James Version, and then stay tuned, because right after that you will hear the Message version, and then we'll go in and start doing our analysis of the scripture. Let's take a listen.
Chapter 27. And David said in his heart,
I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines. Saul shall despair of me. To seek me any more in any coast of Israel, so shall I escape out of his hand.
And David arose, and he passed over with the 600 men that were with him unto Achish, the son of Maoch, king of Gath. And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife. And it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him. And David said unto Achish,
If I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee?
Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day, wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. And the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites, and the Gezerites, and the Amalekites, for those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. And David smote the land, and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep, and the oxen, and the asses, and the camels, and the apparel, and returned, and came to Achish. And Achish said,
Whither have ye made a road today?
And David said,
Against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Kenites.
And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying,
Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David, and so will be his manner, all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines.
And Achish believed David, saying,
He hath made his people Israel utterly to abhor him. Therefore he shall be my servant forever.
Chapter 27. David thought to himself, sooner or later, Saul's going to get me. The best thing I can do is escape the Philistine country. Saul will count me a lost cause and quit hunting me down in every nook and cranny of Israel. I'll be out of his reach for good. So David left. He and his 600 men went to Achish, son of Maoch, king of Gath. They moved in and settled down in Gath with Achish. Each man brought his household. David brought his 2 wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, widow of Nabal of Carmel. When Saul was told that David had escaped to Gath, he called off the hunt. Then David said to Achish, If it's agreeable to you, assign me a place in one of the rural villages. It doesn't seem right that I, your mere servant, should be taking up space in the royal city. So Achish assigned him Ziklag. This is how Ziklag got to be what it is now, a city of the kings of Judah. David lived in Philistine country a year and 4 months. From time to time, David and his men raided the Geshurites, the Girzites, and the Amalekites. These people were longtime inhabitants of the land stretching toward Shur and on to Egypt. When David raided an area, he left no one alive, neither man nor woman, but took everything else: sheep, cattle, donkeys, camels, clothing, the works. Then he'd return to Achish. Achish would ask, "And whom did you raid today?" David would tell them, "Oh, the Negev of Judah, or the Negev of Jerahmeel, or the Negev of the Kenites." He never left a single person alive, lest one show up in Gath and report what David had really been doing. This is the way David operated all the time he lived in Philistine country. Achish came to trust David completely. He thought, "He's made himself so repugnant to his people that he'll be in my camp forever."
All right, now there we go. Now, as you look at this, you can see that this is a very unusual situation, but it's actually not so. I think every one of us, to some degree, have been or currently are dealing with situations like this. And you have to understand what's going on here in the heart mind of David. First of all, when we start off with this chapter, remember, I've always said when the chapter starts with the word "and," you got to know what's going forth before that. And in this particular chapter, it is absolutely necessary to know what happened to bring this chapter about. Now, what we know is that has happened was that from a very early age, as David was still a boy, herding his sheep, what happened? He was anointed to be what?
King.
King over Israel. And so he had that vision of himself. This is what my future's going to look like. He had this ambition. He had this hunger, this feeling within himself that God has this great thing in line for me. And as he got older, he saw some signs that it's going to happen. He got the victory over Goliath. There was a lot of things. He was called into the throne of Saul to play the harp, which then allowed the evil spirits that were oppressing Saul to be quenched. And so David saw a lot of signs that what was happening was going to lead up to that anointing that was given to him. But over and over and over again, David found himself being attacked by Saul to the point that he had to leave the palace area and do what? Run into the wilderness. And on many occasions, David was given an opportunity to, I'm going to allow you to fix your situation. It's amazing sometimes when you're going through struggle with certain things, how the enemy will allow a certain situation to come up. You can take care of the problem that you're dealing with yourself. And here's the situation that just presented itself. How many times? There were 2 times we saw that David was in the presence of Saul when Saul went into the cave once to relieve himself. David was right there with his men. He could have killed them. And then the other time when Abner and his men were guarding Saul, and God put a deep sleep on them, and David and his men ran down there and was able to grab Saul's sword. And he said, I came there, I grabbed your sword, and I didn't hurt you, And so over and over and over again, David's trying to appease Saul so that he can get to the point where he is no longer oppressed by Saul. Well, now we come to chapter 27. And I kind of went over that really quickly. There's a lot of other details in there that add to this feeling. But let's now analyze David's feeling. And it says in verse 1, "And David said in his heart." Now, he didn't say this to anybody else. He didn't even say this to God. David said this in his heart. What did he say? "I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul." Now, I underline that. Because have you ever got to a point where it's like, you know what, this thing that's bothering me, it's going to kill me. I'm going to die because of this. This is going to take me out. You've been dealing with it and fighting with it, and you're like, you know what? It's never going to change. I tried one thing, and it's going to just destroy me. Now, I'm going to give an illustration that I'm going to try to tag along with this particular story. We've all seen, and we saw various movies, and I'm sure we've all heard of even real life situations where a woman and a man that were childhood sweethearts, they were just wonderful together, and they got married. And they have a wonderful situation, and the man takes care of the woman. He, provides and all that kind of stuff. But and he's and he's really generous and all that. But what happens one day? All of a sudden, the woman does something that the man don't like, and the man, out of the blue, just starts beating her. Now, how many times have we heard stories like this? And she's just getting beat, and she's, but then the man apologizes. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. This was just, it's not me. And so she believes, okay, you know what, that was just, it's not going to always be. But then she has another time. And when he's good to her, he's good to her. But then he goes into these situations, and then next thing you know, he's hitting her again. And then you look at this and you go, this is a really unfortunate situation. And the problem a lot of times is from the outside, people are looking and going, wow, isn't she fortunate that she has this wonderful guy? She has this wonderful man that takes care of her. Look at the house she lives in. Look at the family that she got. Look at the car she drives and all that stuff. Not knowing that in her heart, she's like, I don't know, I'm going to end up dying. This man's going to kill me. Everybody else is envying her. And she's recognizing, I'm going to probably die by this man. Well, what should she do?
Leave.
She should leave. You're right. But in our story here, what David is going to do is he's going to go to the Philistine. Now, we talk about types. What is the type of the Philistine? We all talk about how Egypt is a type of sin, and we also talked about how Saul is a type of the devil. The Philistines is a type of the flesh. David is going to find his answer in his flesh. But keep in mind, that's who he's talking to. He's talking to his own heart. Now, let's keep the story that we were trying to analyze with the woman that's married to the abusive husband and David, and let's run these parallel together. And let's see how we can identify. Then you can also put alongside as a third track your own circumstances, your own situation that you go through. And the people are thinking, well, you're doing good, you're doing this, and everything's wonderful or whatever. But in your heart, I'm going to die in this problem. It's never going to get fixed type of situation. All right. And so let's look at David here. It says, and David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. This thing that I've been trying to live with and deal with. He's already now saying, I'm not going to become the anointed king. The current king that's usurping the throne is eventually going to kill me. He's weary and tired. Do you ever get that point where you're trying to do what's right? I'm trying to do what's right. I'm trying to do what's right. And you just get tired. I'm tired. I just don't want to fight this fight anymore. But yet you still got to live. And what do? So let's see what he says. He says, there is nothing better for me than I should speedily escape. I got to find a way out of this problem. That's what David is saying. And how is he going to speedily escape? I'm going to speedily escape into the land of the Philistines. I'm going to go and solve this problem the way that the flesh would solve it. He's not getting an answer from God. He's getting an answer from the flesh. How do people in the flesh solve this problem? Now, let's go back to the woman that's being beat. Her answer is, I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to set up a way, and I'm going to kill him. Not self-defense. Not, trying to just defend herself while the beating. I'm going to develop a plot that I will execute that will eventually kill this man. Now, with that being said, when we hear of the story, We know that that's not right. You should not plot to do what? To do murder. But do you understand? Yes. We know why. This is why she did. It wasn't out of a murderous heart. It was out of what? Self-preservation. She should have done something different, like Haywood said in the beginning. You leave. Should David do something different here? Yes, he should. He should get out of his heart and go to God, and let God know that I'm struggling here. I'm trying to do what's right. All right, and then every now and then you get the promise that, well, maybe it's going to be better, because going back to the woman, the man comes home with wonderful gifts and flowers and takes her out, wonderful vacation and everything, and then, okay, well, you know what? Maybe this is a good one. Maybe this, he's really changed. No. So, and now once again, in your own spirit, mind, and soul, do we have these circumstances that we live with in our life, that we find answers in the flesh, in the world? All right, that we do. This is how I'm going to solve this problem. This is how I'm going to get over this. This is how I'm going to stop feeling this way. This is how I'm going to get rid of this particular issue that I deal with. Yes, Haywood, go ahead.
As you're going through this, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, what do a person really do, Lord, in a case like this? And the only scripture I could pull from scripture was, does a leper change his spots?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where David is. He's like, this is not going to change. And we got to know, what do we do when we're in a situation that you have hope? And David has a great reason to have hope, because he's had these feelings since he was a lad, since he was a child, because he was told by Samuel, you're God's anointed king. So he's been living with these feelings that he's going to have this particular lifestyle from a youth. But it has not happened. It has not manifest. All he's having is struggle and wilderness experiences and ups and downs. He gets a few victories here and there, but it's not the lifestyle that he thought it was going to be. All right, but let's keep going. So right now he's saying, okay, I'm going to escape, and I'm going to go to the land of the Philistines, and Saul will despair of me. In other words, while I'm there, Saul's not going to try to hunt me there, because I'm living with the enemy. Right? I'm doing the things that the Philistines do. And he will despair of seeking after me anymore in the coast of Israel. As long as I'm hanging around the land of Israel, I'm staying in the place of promise, which is what the land of Israel is. Saul will keep chasing me. So if I keep trying to do the right thing, I'm going to keep getting this beat down by Saul. So I guess I'm going to have to do things the way the Philistines do it. I'm going to do things the way the flesh does it. I'm going to find a fleshly solution. And he says, so I will escape out of his hand. Look at verse 2. And David arose. What does that mean? He executed, he's starting now to execute his plan. David arose, and he passed over with 600 men. He took his men with him, that were with him, unto Achish, the son of Morosh, king of Gath. He's going to the king of the Philistines. I'm going to the heart of my flesh. And I'm going to find a way to satisfy this. And you know what your flesh will do? Your flesh will tell you what to do. It doesn't mean it's godly. But your flesh will have an answer for you. All right. Verse 3. And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household. He began to make this his lifestyle. He brought his men with him, and they brought their household with them. Even David with his two wives, Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife. I'm going to bring my whole structure, the way I live, my operation, I'm going to operate under this guise. Working a situation that nobody really understands but me. All right, I'm going to do this. Nobody's really seeing what I'm planning here or why I'm planning this, but I know why. Because I'm tired. I'm weary. I'm exhausted from running from Saul or running from whatever it is that we run from or battle with. Some things, it overwhelms you. Look at verse 4. And it was told Saul that David had fled to Gath, and he sought no more him again for him. So his plan is working. Those feelings that he had about Saul coming after him, he's no longer having those feelings. Right? The situations that you have when you bring it to the flesh and the flesh tells you this is how you answer it, those feelings are gone. When the woman that's being abused, when she puts that plot forth to murder or kill or however it is that she's going to do, poison, whatever it is she's going to do, when the man dies, she no longer has the problem. But she does have to deal with the fact that she didn't do it God's way. The problem stops. Saul's no longer chasing you. The type of the devil is no longer coming after you because they feel they already now got you. And so you no longer have that feeling that is produced by the disappointment of your lifestyle that you hope would be one thing. And guess what? The action that you take by doing it the fleshly way still doesn't bring forth the desire that you had when David was a youth. He's still not anointed king sitting on the throne, but at least he doesn't have the agony and the hurt of running around in the wilderness, and he can be his own little king in his own little area, which we'll see in a minute is a place called Ziklag, which is a very prominent place that we'll see in the Bible. But let's keep going. Let's get there. I'm getting ahead of myself. Verse 5. And David said unto Achish, and Achish once again is the ruler over the Philistines, if I have now found grace in thy eyes, since I've come to you, flesh, for help, let me give me a place in some town in the country, that I may not dwell, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee? I don't want to live in the prominent areas of the flesh. I want to live in the outskirts. I don't want to be fleshly. I just want to use the flesh to solve this particular problem that I have. So I don't want to live in the city. I don't want to live in the main part. I still see myself as a man anointed by God. I just can't live, and I don't want to go deep into flesh. But I got to get out of the country of God to solve this problem. I can't solve this problem living in Israel, around Israel, because if I do, I'm going to continually have to deal with the oppressor of Saul. So look at verse 6. Then Achish gives him Ziklag that day. Wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. He gives him an area where David is going to actually successfully establish something there. But that whole concept of why he did it was just having the feeling of tiredness. Now, let me just point out, as I stated, that yes, we can point out in our own heart and in our own mind times when we're tired, and we can see this about David. But David's not the only one that had this. Moses had this. Remember when Moses got tired? And where was Moses dealing with it? In the wilderness. Remember that? And and the people were crying and crying unto him again and again and again, and then he got mad. Must we, Moses speaking as though it's him and God, continually bring forth this? And he smote the rock the second time. And why did he do that? Out of his weariness. Remember Elijah, when he got the victory over the false prophets of Baal, and the fire came down and devoured them, and then he's a man that's highly anointed, and now Jezebel, this woman, saying, I'm going to destroy and kill Elijah. And Elijah is now running. Where's he running? Once again, in the wilderness, running away. And then he told God, God, just kill me, because I'm tired. And he was running because he felt Jezebel was going to kill him. And so a lot of times this weariness comes upon us because we try. Elijah was trying, but all his trying produced was, you know what? I'm going to die this way. I'm not going to see no victory. It's never going to change. And David is having this. This whole thing that I had from a youth, it's not going to happen. He's given up. And what we got to recognize is, yes, that's human emotion. That's human response. The wanting to give up. But what I will give David credit for is he's not giving up on God. He's giving up on what God promised him. He knows God is still God. I just don't think I'm going to ever, because sometimes we can believe God's going to bless you. He's going to bless you. He's going to bless you. But we don't feel God's going to bless me. I'm not going to get it. I believe everybody else to get it. Oh, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray. But I'm not going to get it. That weariness that can come upon people. And like I stated, I think we all can identify to some degree. Look at verse 6. Actually, we read verse 6. Let's go to verse 7. It says, and the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. So 16 months David was living in the aspects of the Philistine covering. I'm going to live according to how the flesh, the Philistines being a type of the flesh, solves this problem. And for that 16 months, guess what? Saul was not trying to kill him. David's answer satisfied the issue. It still was not God's anointed plan, though. The vision that God gave to David when he was an anointed king by Samuel, when he was yet a young boy, is what God has for him. But David is tired. He's weary. Let's keep going. Verse 8. And David and his men went up and invaded. Now this is how he's surviving. This is what he's doing. Because you still gotta find a way to make this reality a reality. So he's going to a place. Look what he says. And David and his men went up and invaded the Gershites, the Gazarites, and the Ammonites. So he's still fighting against the enemies of God. These were towns that Joshua didn't fully capture. And David went in and he's still fighting God's battle. While satisfying one struggle with the flesh, he's still fighting the other battles that other people were not able to solve. So it's complicated in a lot of sense. David is living in a fleshly environment, but still fighting the fights of God. All right? And it says, for those nations were of old inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even to the land of Egypt. These were areas when they came out of Egypt that they did not conquer, that they should have. All right? So he still is doing the work of God. But he's living in a fleshly land. He's living in Philistine territory. Look at verse 9. And David smote the land and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away sheep, the ox, the asses, the camels, and the apparel. That means all the clothes, anything that they had, and returned and came to Achish. He went back to the land. Yes, Hayward.
But God is not giving him the right to do this.
No, this is David's solution.
I tell you, for a man after God's own heart, boy, when you read up on him, he really shows us how messed up we all can be.
Oh, that's why I say you look at something like this, and this is what's in David's heart. That's why when this particular chapter opens up, It says, and David said in his heart, this is what David is dealing with in his inner man. And I think this is such an important chapter because it helps us to understand what are we dealing with our inner man, with our disappointments, with our frustrations, with our struggles. When we get tired, when we get weary, when we're trying to believe for something that we believe should be, and it doesn't show up, it doesn't happen. What do? A lot of times the answer is people go to the flesh, like the type of the metaphor, the example I gave of the woman. You know, this being beaten. She's being treated well. She lives good, but she's being beaten. And what does she do? A lot of times, we've heard many stories, they go to the flesh and they're like, I'm going to kill this guy. And so David is doing something that is not advisable. But he's doing it in a way that he still can say, I'm still godly. Because I'm still destroying some of the other areas that Joshua, that other great men did not destroy. And he grabs all the stuff. Now, you would think that if he's doing this, he could then be proud of it. He can't. Let's look at why he cannot be proud of it and share it. All right. So he goes and he gets all these sheep, oxen, and donkeys and camels and all these clothes from the nations that he conquered. And look at verse 10. And he comes back and he comes back to Achish. Look at 10. And Achish says, "Whither have ye made road today?" In other words, where have you made any inroad, any gain? Where have you gotten all of this wonderful stuff from? Achish is wondering, how did you get all these donkeys and camels and oxen and all this clothes? How did you get this? And David said, against the south of Judah. What does that mean? David did what? He lied. He said, I went to Judah. Why? Because Judah and Philistine are enemies. Judah is the land of Israel. So he's telling Achish, I went and I fought against Judah. That's not true. He fought against the land of the enemies, the other enemies. But he's telling Achish, I got it from Judah. Against Judah and against the Jezreelites and against the Kenites, areas around the area of Jerusalem. So King Achish thinks, wow, he's fighting against his old people, his own folks. He's getting all this victory. And so David does what? He's living a lie.
It's a big one.
And that's a lot of times when we live out of our own heart, people will look at us and think, wow, this is really great. But in reality, you're living a lie. Just like the woman that's being beat. Oh, everybody's jealous. I wish I had a husband like that. No, you don't. You don't know the lie that I'm dealing with every day. All right? And so this is what David does. Now, how can David successfully pull this lie off? Well, when you do a lie, if you're going to make the lie really work, you got to do some things to make sure that nothing pops up to discover your lie. So and why does he have to do this? Because he's living where? In the flesh. All right? And it's difficult. Can we understand? Do we know, hey, being weary of being chased by Saul? I get it. So I don't condemn David. I understand, but I cannot endorse it. We got to, but at the same time, I can't endorse some of the things that I do in my life. Because some of the things are very similar to what David deals with that cause us to make decisions and things that we do. But look at what David has to do here. Verse 11. And David saved neither man nor woman alive. When he went to those other nations of the Gerasites and the Amalekites and the Gerasites, he killed everybody. Every man, every woman. Why did he do that? Because God told him? No. That's not why he did it. Look at why he did it. Verse 11. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath. I don't want nobody telling anybody where I really got the victory for to get these sheep and these donkeys and these camels and all these clothes. I want the Achish to feel like I got it from the area that I told him I got it from, not from where I really got it. So he's saying, lest they should tell on us. I don't want anybody tattletelling. So I got to get rid of all the evidence. Once again, we go back to the woman that decides I'm going to, kill my husband because he's giving me a good life, but he's also beating me. I have promise, I have potential, but I'm getting beat. And now she's got to get rid of whatever it is that she did. Whether she, runs him over with the car by accident, or make it look like an accident, or poisons him, or whatever. The evidence has to get rid of. I got to get rid of the evidence, so people will know. Now they will certainly sympathize. I get it. I know why you did it, but I don't want no evidence around. And so David's getting rid of the evidence, but how does he get rid of the evidence? I got to kill everybody. And you can imagine. Let me elaborate on this. When David comes in and he is taking this town, and he gets the victory. Now you got the victory. You got all the sheep. You got all the stuff. That's not the end of the battle. David now has to go and search every nook and cranny. What is he looking for? Anybody else that's alive. I'm not looking for somebody that's trying to fight me now. I'm looking for anybody that may be alive that could tell the true story. So even though he got the victory, I gotta go around this town. I gotta overturn every bed. I gotta open every closet. I gotta look in every ditch. I gotta look everywhere to make sure I don't leave anybody alive, because I don't want nobody to know what what me and my men are actually doing. Cannot let King Achish know this. And that's one of the things that when you live a life like this, there's certain things you got to do to cover it up. Sometimes you want people to think, oh, everything is wonderful. Oh, I have a wonderful experience, in dealing with whatever it is that my experience is just, I thank God for it. And really, it's painful and it's hurting, and you got to do things to make it seem like it's not. It's a sad situation that David has gotten into, but can we understand? Can we identify? Sure. Can we say that, okay, this is a remedy? No, it's not a remedy. But let's keep going here. So let me just read 11 right on into 12. These are our final portions here. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, lest they should tell on us, saying, so did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelt in the country of the Philistines. This is how David operated while he was self-medicating himself with a Philistine inhabitation. I'm going to take care of my own hurt about me having to deal with Saul, and this is how I'm dealing with it. I'm going to live within the Philistine area to solve the hurt, to solve the wilderness running that I'm doing. Saul's not chasing me no more. I'm not having that feelings anymore. Yeah, but you're still not where you know you should be. You're not there. Look at verse 12. And Achish believed David, saying, he have made his people Israel utterly abhor him. Therefore, he shall be my servant forever. And that's what will happen. If you live in Philistine, you're going to have to stay there and keep doing what you're doing. Or are you going to come out of the land of Philistine and hope and continue to believe that God can make what seemingly is never going to go away? Because the reason why David is doing this, because he doesn't believe in his heart that this is going to go away. It's ever going to change. But he's going to have to live like this continuously unless he comes out of trying to find the answer in his own heart in the land of Philistine and lean back on God and allow God to bring him through this. Now, as I stated, this was a short chapter, not a whole lot more to this. But man, do you see the bombshell here? Do you see the explosive situation that David has put himself into? And can you identify? Can you say, yes, I can think of things in my own particular life that I get weary of, and I find my answer in fleshly things. I find my answer in trying to find a way around it by doing things that the world does, rather than leaning on the way God would say, this is how you do it. But the problem a lot of times that we have, and why we lean to the world, is the world can take away the pain. That's why people go to drugs, because it does what? It takes away the pain. The woman's going to kill the husband that's being abusive to her. Why? Because it's going to take away the pain of the beatings. We all can understand it. This is why our trust in God has to supersede our own feelings. And that's a different level. That's a different state of mind that we got to go into, to where we would be like, I don't really care what's going to happen. I'm going to trust in God. Now, there's a whole book related to that particular scenario, where the person says, if I perish, I perish. I'm going to see the King. That's the book of Esther. And we haven't gotten to that book yet, but when we get to that book, we'll elaborate more on this living in a very, very difficult circumstance, but trying to solve the problem godly. Right? And yet, even in that book, we'll see situations where they could have solved it a whole lot of other different ways. But allow God to step in. So what does David need? He needs what we need. He needs what Esther needed. A miracle. Because you can't figure it out. You can't do 2 plus 2 is going to get me this. You can't, in your mind and in your heart and all of your understanding, you put everything together. It's like, I don't see no change here. So then you get depressed, or you get pity parties, or whatever it is that it is. But David's in a situation where he was in his own heart. That's what the chapter opens up. David said in his heart, I shall now perish by the hand of Saul. But that's not what God said. God gave him the vision. And you know who else had a situation like this? That was given a vision as a young child, and it didn't happen until way, way later? Joseph. Remember Joseph, when God gave Joseph the dreams, where he saw his brothers bowing down, and he saw the sun, moon, and the stars bowing down to him, which was interpreted that one day your whole family will be bowing down to you. And what happened? He was hated by his brothers. His brothers wanted to kill him. Then they said, let's put him in a ditch. And then they said, no, let's sell him. Let's make some profit out of him. Then he went into Egypt. He's a servant in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's wife tries to entice him. Then she lies on him when he doesn't succumb to her enticement. And then he's thrown in jail. In jail, he helps 2 people by explaining their dreams. And then he said, to the one that was able to get out, when you get out, don't forget about me. But what did he do? He forgot about him. And you will look at Joseph's situation. He's like, well, where is these visions and these dreams and these promises that God gave you when you was a youth? How come you are, in a jail, hated by your brothers, lied to by Potiphar's wife, but yet God gave another dream to the king, and what happened? Instantly he came up. And that's what we got to try to lean on and hope for. It's easy sometimes to go, I'm going to solve this I'm going to find a fleshly way. I'm going to do things a different way to numb the pain that life can bring, the circumstances can have. But can we just hang on just a little bit in our anguish and in our disappointment and in our frustration and wait for the miracle of God? And believe that it can happen. And yes, it's not just going to happen in Bible stories. It's just not going to happen to other people. It's going to happen for you. Can you believe it? Can you hang on to it? And get out of Philistine. Don't live in Philistine. Now, it's way easier said than done. You got to really just believe God's going to make a difference. Because a lot of times living in Philistine is just a way to dull the pain. Make it easier to go from one day to another. You're never going to really get that high that God has promised you, that level that God has said you will have. But you know, I'm not going to also have that agonizing pain either. I know how to deal with that pain in a different way. But you're going to have to live with that going forth if you choose to do that. And you're going to have to do a lot of other things, hiding and sneaking and doing things that people don't, you don't want people to know, and covering up so that people don't think and suspect that you're doing a certain thing just to deal with the problem that you got. And that's something that we have to keep in mind when we look at this particular chapter and apply it to ourselves. All right, as I stated, this was a short chapter, but very powerful. I'm going to stop here. Any comments or questions on what we talked about today?